Hi, this is Veronica Tash. I'm once again reminding you to think critically. Today we are going to go over the details with the median voter theory. This is what is definitely used by the Democratic Party, used to be used by the Republican Party as well. It was a very, very mainstream theory back in the 1980s. That is when this probably really became big, but it more or less you could date it back to at least the 50s. I want to give you just some basics about it, not go into all the detail, the history. So I didn't look too much into the history myself. I'm just going based off of what I've learned throughout my academic career. Now let's get in here. Right here, the PowerPoint, and start the slideshow. All right, so we're going through the follies of median voter theory. And what we are looking at, we have the distribution along one spectrum. Usually it's considered right versus left. This is not necessarily the distribution of voters, but it's normal bell curve. Easy to comprehend it here. Right there in the middle, in this case, is the median voter. That's literally the voter who's in the middle on that left-right scale. If you were to line everybody up on their political views from left to right nationally, that's what you'd be looking at. Now, there's some key assumptions to the model. First, that there's only a clearly defined left-right spectrum. Second, voters will choose rationally the candidate who is closest to them along this spectrum. So this comes into rational choice theory as well, which is also a bunch of BS. Then finally, that voters will vote and will not opt to not vote. It's kind of important when it comes here because it's assuming that you got everyone to your side captive in this two-party system. Now, how does it look? This is something I nabbed online. You have simply 9 voters in this case. Once again, lined up left to right. Democratic Party candidate takes position at 2. Republican candidate takes position at 7. Each voter looks to the closest person to them. In this case, 4 go with the Democratic candidate, 5 go with the Republican, who's more moderate in this example. I don't think it's a very realistic example today's day and world, but that is what they chose when they made it. Now, traditionally, what parties would do, you want to get yourself as close as you can to the center without opening yourself up to a third-party challenge on your fringe. So you'll see neither one is going right to the center. If they went both right to the center, people are going to open up here and they're going to get some attention, is the thought. So you get as close as you can without going over. And, that way you're getting closer to the median and you're going to bring everybody who's closest to you over. Now, where the Democrats are trying, we're not going to the Democrats yet. This is what happens if you get too close to the center. If you get too close to the center, you're going to have someone like the Green Party in this case coming in at this more left-wing level, getting attention. And so all these voters halfway between the Democrat and the Green are going to vote for the Green. Everyone to their left, between these midway points here, that's what the Democrats get. Republicans get everything else. In this case, Republicans will get a plurality, but not a majority, because that halfway line between the Democrats and Republicans is to the right of the median. And so that's why you don't get too close to the median. And of course, there are many different distributions, not just the one that you saw there. And actually, our negatively skewed one is probably the one that is best fit for the US. If you were to look at the full scale of how people look, where they place themselves, either that or you'd have a negatively skewed, I don't know, I like that in this case, negatively skewed bimodal. And I didn't really look at whether it be modal or bimodal. I could probably look that up. Bimodal is what I think people are going, where they're going to put themselves. But we looked at the unimodal symmetrics. It could be a bimodal symmetric or bimodal skewed either positively or negatively. And that's because politics in the United States is very, very far right. So if you had a true look at everything, that's how it's going to be. But looking for this purpose and the way that I translated the bimodal symmetric covers what is natural. If it weren't for, if you just look at the within the Overton window is the range of acceptable political views within society. That bimodal distribution is probably fairly accurate to where people will place themselves, because they're place themselves based on where the politicians are and what they think is the more left or right wing movement normally. Now, here's what actually happened in 2024. Kamala didn't just go as close to that median as possible. She didn't go to the median voter and say, this is where I am. She went past the median voter, trying to get everyone to the left. Greens were here, and they weren't, right there in the middle. They were, on the American scale at least, they're a pretty left-wing party. If this was worldwide scale, they'd be further over to the right, closer towards the center of everything. But in the United States, they're fairly left-wing. And of course, Donald Trump ran far right. Donald Trump does not run towards the center. He didn't any of the 3 times. And he won 2 of the 3 elections that he ran in, running the far right. That should tell you something about how this median voter theory is panning out in the modern age. It did seem to work in the 80s, 90s, maybe even the early 2000s, but it does not work out overall. When you leave that idea where people still think that government is working. Now, the Democratic Party interprets this Kamala's loss as that people are so far to the right that Kamala missed the median voter. In reality, there are several issues that are preventing the median voter theory from working. And so, first off, swing voters are idiots, and they do not vote based on policy. And there's, of course, been some studies suggesting that there aren't really any swing voters anyways, just a very small handful, which tells you something about that bimodal distribution. But rather that what they'll vote on is based on something stupid, like eye squintiness. And I use that because I literally, after the 2008 election, spoke to a black woman who decided she needed to explain to me for some reason that she did not vote for Obama. And the reason why she didn't is because she thought that he was untrustworthy because his eyes were squinty. She didn't trust Bush either because Bush had squinty eyes. So squintiness of eyes was what she voted on. It may be something like a handshake. It may be just whatever people will whatever issue that, excuse me, um, whatever issue they heard last, that's what they're going to vote on. It's going to be something very, very stupid, not well thought out, and they're fairly random. The one big thing that you do notice with them is that if they vote one way for president, they're going to vote another way for Congress. So if you're there in a presidential ballot and you win the presidential vote, it's good, or you win these voters in the middle there, these the median voters. They are going to vote the other way for Congress, meaning that you can't really get anything done as president if you win. You got you got gridlock that's going to come necessarily because they think they're smart. I voted for this way for president, so I'm going to balance it out by voting the other way for Congress. See how smart I am? They have no idea what they did. So, but they're not really voting based on policy. You're not going to appeal to them by them thinking you're in the center. They're going to vote for you for something completely stupid or not. Now, and oh God, if you ever watch median voters, swing voters, not median voters, there's only one person can be the median voter as far as this theory is concerned. But yeah, if you get that one, you're going to always have more because everybody's voting to your side if this theory works out. But the other issue, go back. The other issue is that without a good choice, many voters will just not vote. Hey, the Republicans suck, the Democrats suck. I don't think a third party will win. So no, I'm just going to stay home. I'm not going to vote. We saw a lot of that. And then there are actually numerous axes, I should say, which people value. It's not just the left-right axis here. And so let me show you here. You have and I had Google Gemini throw this up because I need something quick. And you're not going to want me to try to draw a straight line even with a computer. But economic axis, the social axis, which should go down below as well, but this is Google's craziness. And when I try to get it to fix it, it may mark that X as well. But then you have a change axis. So economic issues left to right, social left to right, or authoritarian to libertarian, however you want to see it. And then you have that change. What's that change? This is something that's very important that's coming up now. Change is whether you support the status quo, you think things are going good, and you want to see more of it, or if you want to see big changes. Kamala ran very, very, on I don't want change. So, probably be this back area, pointing back into the left. Whereas Trump ran the other direction. He wants to have a whole lot of change going on. And it doesn't seem to matter right now which way you want to make change. You have a lot of people out there who value this axis more than anything else. The status quo sucks, so we want to try something new. Things aren't working out. So who's going to give me that change? Now, they may have their preferences if it's left wing or right wing, if it's more freedom or less freedom socially, all that type of stuff. But they are going to be, they want to see change. They want to see wild changes. Things aren't working. Let's roll the dice because I'm going to die if it remains the way it is. That is a big thing that's being left out. And Kamala did not stand for change. Her message was, I'm not going to change anything. Would not do anything different from Joe Biden, except for I may move even further to the right. And that doesn't really work well. So, what did the Democrats do? They didn't. They ditched immigrant protections in 2021 while they're still under Biden. Biden won the election, um, running fairly to the left, not where he really was, but Bernie pushed him. You were going to have to do this, or my people aren't going to vote for you. And so, with that done, once he gets into office, he decides, you know what? Even though I said, you know, amnesty is a human right, and we've never done this before. This is crazy. You know what? I'm going to flip everything. I'm going to adopt Trump's immigration platform. Then his people are going to have to support me. Didn't work. But that's where the Democratic Party moved. They threw immigrants under the bus as soon as they won. They decided they were going to follow the MAGA 2016 immigration policy. In 2024, I think it was 24, maybe it was 23. It lasted so long. But I want to say 2024 is the October 7th event where Israel started its offensive into Palestine and started killing everybody because there were a few hostages taken. And so the Democratic Party went strong support of Israel. Biden would not call it out, even when you're talking about people being thrown in ditches, still thrown into mass graves, still alive, where they could not get their way out of the ditch or the grave, just because of trying to climb over dead bodies and one another. It wasn't going to happen. I mean, it's very, very clear case of intentional infliction of genocide here. This isn't just a whole bunch of Palestinians happened to die. It was very much trying to kill all the Palestinians. It wasn't, where every single Palestinian died, but they were trying to kill as many as they could. And Kamala held to that. She said, screw the Palestinians. I'm not going to say anything on this. I'm going to have no distance between me and Biden on it. Which I think she said in her book that she regrets that part of it. She should have spoken out on it. But they threw all anyone who supports Palestine under the bus. My adopted sister, who is Jewish, she said I can't vote for Kamala based on what she did there. She couldn't vote for Biden because what he did there. That is what I'm trying to say. It's not just Arabic voters. This is a Jewish woman who says I can't vote for Biden because he is supporting genocide. And genocide committed by other Jewish people, but genocide, she held strong to never again. Now, next issue, they plan to throw trans people under the bus. That was the first response to the loss. Oh, we were too far to the left, even though we said nothing about trans people during the entire election. You know what? We need to give up on these trans rights. Let's throw them under the bus and let's see if that's enough to get us over. Because they're trying to get that median voters, they're trying to move to the right, because they know that they're to the left of Trump. They need to stay there following median voter theory. And of course, black voters are nervous. They see all these people being thrown under the bus. Well, when are we getting thrown under the bus? So that is something that is not a good idea for them. Why is this looking so green? But this is right from Excel. I copied it. I did a video right after the election where I went through the changes between 2020 and 2024 for who were the Democratic and Republican voters. And I think this tells a lot of the story about what happened there. Like I said, 2021, the Democratic stance was, you know what, there's no difference between us and Republicans when it comes to immigration. Other than maybe we won't separate the kids from the parents, but that's the only difference. Now you see a whole bunch of changes in who's here, and I suggest actually I go through them in detail. Look at the other older video if you want to see in detail. But let's look at Latino men and women. We had more Latino men turn out, fewer Latino women. Trump gained 2.3 million Latino men. Kamala lost 700,000. When it comes to Latino women, Trump lost 270,000, or 260,000 is closer. Whereas about 3.2 million Latino votes were lost. This is two things. One, I'm not going to vote for the Democrats because they're not going to help me. They're not going to help my cousin who may not be here legally. Whatever the case may be, might be just people in their neighborhood because they know their neighbor isn't documented. Their visa ran out, 5 years ago or something. But, that's their neighbor. That's part of their community. But one way or another, they did not turn out for Kamala, especially the women. With the men, it looks like a whole bunch of them did switch. They went over to Trump. Why would they go over to Trump, who is so anti-immigrant, when I'm saying that this is the part of the populace, the ethnic part of the populace that's going to care most about this issue? And that's going to come down to, if you take away that difference, where are they going to land? A lot of those Latino people that came over, they became citizens. They come from strict Catholic backgrounds. A lot of them joined the evangelical movement. They were the biggest growth in the evangelical movement last I saw, that may be 10 years ago. But there was a big thing there. They are going to support the very restrictive social policies of the Republicans. That is probably why you saw so many go for Trump. Now, you'll see that same thing with Latino women. They didn't switch to Trump. They went and they decided they just weren't going to show up. If they abandon us, we're going to abandon you. And there is a lot of spite that goes into this stuff. You do not see perfect rational voting. This is Latino women, Latinas, saying, you know what? We're going to make sure that we show you how much we disagree with what you're doing. And so they're withholding their vote. And it doesn't matter whether they think it's better or worse. For them, it's a matter of spite. And this is a very human thing that the model, the median voter model, really leaves out. Of course, you see when it comes to others, which was, I had no data for just other on ethnicity, but other on when you break it down by men and women, they did have an other column that that was available, and you do see a lot of people with other stuff coming out. That's Indian people, that's Arabic people, American Indians are going to fit in there. They're all going. Now they're not going to show up. Here, yeah, Asians are also going to be fitting in there, but they both stopped coming up, and that hurt Kamala more than Trump. And a lot of interesting things that happen otherwise, but that's what's important to look at here for median voter theory. So there's some key issues that you want to take away from here. First is that Americans despise the status quo. I'm going to show you that in a moment. But running to the center turns voters off. If you're saying you're not going to change anything, that's a very strong moment on that change versus no change axis. And America very much right now is pro-change. We want you to do something different because the status quo does not work. Now, Donald Trump's messing up really bad right now. They may come out in 2028, vote for the Democratic candidate because Trump was so horrible. But that's not going to last long term. Next term, Democrats did a shitty job. We're going to go swing back to the Republicans if you just stay there. And we have to note that Trump constantly running to the far right and winning and being close in 2020 should lead to us dismissing the median voter theory, at least as it applies right now in today's America. It does not accurately model it. If you have Democrats running towards the center and Donald Trump running to the far right, the median voter theory isn't working. He is activating a lot of people on his base. The Democrats are losing tons and tons of people that they're alienating because they are so desperate to get these people who are not going to vote based on their policy choices. And of course, the Democratic Party has a horrible track record with enacting change. That is something that we need to keep in mind. Whenever the Democrats have power, they can have 60 seats in the Senate, they'll have the House, they'll have the presidency. They can do whatever they want as a party. They don't act like the Republicans. They find ways to trip all over themselves, find a way not to do it. Obama made promises for the Affordable Care Act, or before it was Affordable Care Act, when he was first running for president, and that all got gutted so that they can have a more corporate-friendly answer because they didn't have the Republicans to stop them. Democrats, these centrist Democrats, of course, gave in and threw us under the bus and said, no, we're not going to do that. You're going to have to go with something that's more pro-corporate. Whenever they have a chance, it's always just enough. You notice you need just Manchin and Sinema. Those are the two that keep constantly voting against what Biden needed. You look at this recent where the Senate decided to vote on something finally that they passed. Cloture is what they voted on. They voted to use cloture so that a second vote could be had that just needed a bare majority to pass a bill for a continuing resolution. And you had just enough Democrats cross the line. Not too many, just enough of them. And of course, we know that Schumer's vote really would have been the other way if he didn't have enough people to cross that line. And this is how it's always done. When you had, for example, protecting women in law after Roe versus Wade got overturned. They could have done that in 2024. Instead, they decided this is a good campaign issue. So let's not go do something that we can say we did this on the record. This is the record of what we did for you. It's, if you elect us again, we'll do it. And if you're going to do that, why is anyone going to trust you? You're going to vote, you're going to do it when you do get in again, if you do have the ability to. They do not get anything done when it comes to voting the left. Bipartisan stuff, they will go do that all day long. They love working with Republicans. Even as they turn to Nazis, they're going to say, yeah, let's collaborate with the Nazis. We want you to work with us. That was their big message when Trump first took power. We want to work with you. And that is pretty damn pathetic. So I I'm not that confident that the Democrats can actually pull things off properly, one way or another. Their image is pretty bad. But now I told you we were going to go into why I'm saying that the status quo is really bad. And this is going to give us a little bit more insight. Okay, so I want to choose. From Pew Research, and this is from September 19th, 2023. So this is 2 years ago. This is still during Biden. And so this really tells you a lot about how Kamala should have been running. This is titled Americans' Dismal Views of the Nation's Politics. And let's just go here to what the bullet points are. Only 4% of U.S. adults say the political system is working extremely or very well. 23% say it's working somewhat well. Whereas the supermajority, the 63%, express that they have not much or no confidence at all in the political system. Positive views of governmental and political institutions are at historic lows. Growing share of the public dislikes both of the political parties. Candidate choices, they don't like that. Majorities back age and term limits, blah, blah, blah. That's both of those are, well, got some age limit, maybe decent idea. Term limits, horrible idea, because it doesn't work the way that you think it will. We've done that study on states. And eliminating electoral college is good, but not if it's done alone. That just encourages Democrats to not fix anything. Look here, how do people feel when they think about politics? Angry, that high majority. Ones that are hopeful, rarely never is the majority there, and vast majority when it comes to excited. People are not happy with the way things are going. And of course, you have a little chart. What do people say? Biggest thing is divisive. You also got polarized here. One of these little word charts that were really big a while back. But just because it's divisive doesn't necessarily mean that's the problem with the country. And Democrats haven't realized that yet. Important issues facing the country. Blah, blah, blah. Americans tend to think that partisan politics is a problem, but, they don't really know what they're talking about there, because when it comes down to it, they support the people who are willing to be partisan. It's the unwillingness to work at all when you don't have the majority of power, the gridlock that Americans hate. And the Democrats always give in one hell of a lot. The Republicans don't give an inch, and that's where we end up. But let's look at the Democratic Party favorability, according to Real Clear polling, which brings a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm not going to say that the polling is 100% accurate, but the general trend is going to be accurate. I think it may come up with more favorable answers than it really should be, but Democrats are at 33.6%, with 58% saying that they distinctly dislike the Democrats. Of course, they don't show the people who had no clear answer one way or another how they felt, but that's all that's important there. We move on to Republicans. They're doing better. Favorable 40.8%, unfavorable 52.7%. So you see, Democrats running to the center are very, very disliked. Trump's favorability is sitting here at 44% favorable overall. His best seems to be 48%. We go back to 2016, he had some very low numbers that were showing up. I really think that the way that they're doing it is really overstating Trump. They're suggesting only a 7.5%. You see a lot of these polls are showing a lot more, but it does surprise me how many people seem to be fine with Trump after all the nonsense that's going on. But that's probably a lot of the fault of people like Chuck Schumer, who keep saving Trump from the worst of the worst. And the media, of course, is not covering things like Trump's clear mental decline. The media is very, very much cowed, and he didn't even have to force them. But direction in the country, we are at 37.2, think we're going in the right direction. And that's falling here. You see at the very end. Last poll was in October 10th. Now we're going in the right direction. Is the minority. The majority think it's the wrong direction. And this is very clear throughout the period. This goes back to what? Almost as far back as Obama started. Let's see if it tells us. Oh, maybe it does go all the way back to when Obama started. But we seem to be very close. Best we've had in this 15-year period was back in 2009. But you see very notable changes when Biden becomes president. People are, yeah, we think things are going the right direction, and then they change their minds. When Trump takes over, yep, things are going the right direction. Oh no, change our minds. And a lot of people think that, or a lot of pundits claim, oh, see, American people are fickle. That's all, they have no real stance. No, they have a stance. The problem is that we keep doing, the Democrats don't do jack shit. They don't get anything done other than some little, maintenance stuff. Oh, we're going to have infrastructure, not cool infrastructure. We're just going to pay for bridges to be built or repaired or whatnot. All basic stuff. No programs to really help people when people are suffering. No, that would be too far to the left, and we'll never get elected again. That's what we get you elected again. But they keep telling themselves that story, and every failure is an excuse. Oh, we got to move further. With Trump, you don't see quite that fast of an upturn. This was already in September of his first year. Biden's first year, you already saw this agreement that was that sharp U-turn. That you did not see that as strong here, which I'm not 100% sure why. I think it has something to do with the way that the media is running things. But people don't like what Trump's doing either. They don't like goddamn Nazism trying to take control, fighting with liberal oligarchy that was here before. People want some actual change, and you listen to a lot of those people, a lot of those influencers who back down Trump, the sort of bro influencers, and you hear what they said, because they're all fed up with Trump at this point. And they said what they want is change. One guy was saying, maybe if we pick this guy, Donald Trump, he's going to change things for the better. Maybe he'll change it for the worse, but these won't be what we already have. People want change because the status quo sucks, because people are struggling to pay their basic bills. They're dealing with massive inflation. Their wages aren't going up. You have debt building. People feel unable to do things. When I was a kid, my parents were able to take us on vacation yearly where we literally leave. I don't do that anymore because I don't have the money to go do something like that because things are getting worse in the country. This neoliberalism is, what this country settled on. It sucks, and people are rejecting it. They will jump for Bernie or someone like that. If the AOC runs, they will jump for AOC. They'll jump for Trump. They're not going to jump for Kamala Harris. They're not going to jump for Gavin Newsom. They may be shortly bemused by that Newsom can at least speak tough, but once they get reminded of where his policies are, he doesn't stand a chance. Pete Buttigieg. People don't like Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg is the boomer millennial, is what I like to call him, because he has the same political viewpoint as all the boomers, but he happens to be young, relatively. Those are not the types of candidates that the Democrats want if they're going to move forward. I don't think they're going to move forward. I think that you need to have the rise of a third party. Classically, that's what you would see. Where's my stop sharing? Classically, that is what you would see when you have major party failure. That's what they call this. The two major parties, nobody likes either of them. They haven't for a long time. One of these parties, at least, should be collapsing and making way for a third party. But because we have these influencers today, and I have crap for subscribers and all that, so I'm not much of one. I'm a little bit of one. So many of them just buy in. Oh no, third parties unworkable. You have to go stick with the Democrats, or you have to stick with the Republicans. And that's probably why we haven't seen a third party rise. It would have happened if it weren't for people constantly, through all this money being put behind it, saying, don't vote third party, don't think about a third party, don't organize a third party. And so we don't have one. But we had that back when the Republican Party, or not the Whig Party, failed to address the slavery issue. They fell within a short period of time. They were replaced by the Republican Party, and the Republican Party handled slavery. I don't know how much they would have had the South not decided they really, really liked their slavery and wanted to fight a war over it. Because Lincoln's original plan was going to take like 1910 to slowly free all the slaves, reimbursing all the slave owners for the their freed person. And but one way or another, they were very distinctly anti-slavery, and they filled that niche. We all agree that the status quo isn't working, other than a very small percent that are very, very influential within the Democratic Party. 63% are very, very negative on this. The status quo doesn't work. Why have the Democrats gone? Because people keep telling you that's the only choice. Oh, we're going to take over from within, even though that's never worked, and it's still not working. You do not change parties from the within like that unless you have a crap load of money behind it, and it's all being done covertly. That's how you got the New Democrats who took over in 1992. That's your neoliberal Democrats that have been there for the past 30 years. This is where Chuck Schumer comes from. This was Bill Clinton, who really signaled the rise of the New Democrats in 1992. And it sounds weird now, 30 years later, calling them the New Democrats, but that's what they were called. but they have money behind them, and they were able to keep it from being widely known that that's what they were trying to do. You're not going to do that with the Democratic Party, but that's going to be other videos. I want to just explain here why this whole median voter idea that's driving the Democratic Party, this centrist driven idea, just does not work. It is not um, what is going to get votes in the current climate. If the status quo is great, we're saying, hey, I'm going to stick with the status quo is a winning message. If everyone hates the status quo, that is the message of a loser. Thank you.